But that was the whole point of open mic poetry, is you forcing your poetry on everybody else.
That's right. Listen to my feels. My parents don't give me enough attention. No judgment. I did it. I have a degree in poetry. That's how much my parents didn't listen to me, okay?
1, 2, 3, 4. If you can do all your stuff, what can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Hey everyone, just a note at the top of the show. We, like a lot of people, are practicing social distancing right now, so you might hear a difference in sound quality between us as we figure this out. We really wanted to continue making episodes for you during the quarantine while keeping each other and our families safe. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello, this is It Chooses You. I'm Teresa Sparks.
And I'm Claire Patton.
And we have a guest today.
We do.
Well, who is it, Claire?
Our guest today is Tim Rearick, who is also my partner.
Yay! Hi, Tim.
Hello.
We are doing the social distancing edition of It Chooses You.
That's right. Tim and Claire are on their homestead in Weld County, while Colorado has a very wet, heavy snow happening, and we are all in our homes, socially distancing to help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
It's a very nasty day here.
Yeah, it's a good day to be inside. So Tim is here today because Tim is very enthusiastic about coffee, right?
That is true. I love the stuff.
There's normal enthusiastic, right?
I'm normally enthusiastic about coffee. I really enjoy it. When I go to bed at night, I get to say, oh, well, that's okay, because when I wake up, I get to have coffee. I like coffee a normal amount.
Yes, and so do I. So we like it as a beverage. But Tim is like next level coffee obsessive.
So
you like it as a beverage, though, too, right, Tim?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't see a better way of consuming coffee than as a beverage.
Okay.
All these other trendy methods you're not into.
Yeah, like making a coffee jello and then eating coffee.
Who does that?
Coffee enema doesn't appeal to you?
I've heard people talk about stuff like that, but I've never personally tried it. So I'm an enthusiast, but not to that level. I prefer my coffee in one specific hole of my body.
Right, you want it to come in through the top. Like
yeah.
we're basically like a donut with digestive equipment inside the donut, and you want your coffee to come in through the one entrance of the donut, not come in through the other entrance.
The commonly recognized
food hole
entrance. Yeah. But I have done a lot of studying about coffee and its origins and its effects on history. And I have, for a very, very long time, been interested in coffee in all its influential power since it had been discovered. So I've not just had coffee in a mug, but I've done a lot of reading and studying and nerding out about coffee.
It's in your blood, man.
It is in my blood.
I like that you said, because I know that that's true, but I never think of it, that you said you studying its historical and sort of economic impacts as well. Because, I mean, it was kind of like it was the new drug, right? It was the heroin of whatever time that was when we discovered when we attacked whatever culture it was that had it originally and stole it for ourselves.
Yeah, and the stole it for ourselves created a level of colonialism that we, white European stock, have profited from for generations and generations.
Yeah, it's basically like the opium poppy of whatever.
Yeah, I would
century.
argue that it's the opium poppy is the coffee of whatever, because I think coffee has done more to centralize power into a European culture than opium has.
Sure, opium makes you stay home. Coffee makes you go out and do shit.
Yeah, well, and the Industrial Revolution and the stock market all really have an origin story in coffee and coffee shops.
Tell me more about coffee shops.
I can remember reading about how different European coffee shops drew patronage from different sectors of that community, whether it was tradesmen who were coming in to get a quick cup before they moved on, or artists and poets and, that picturesque, patio coffee shop scene, but where arguments and conversations really were the reason people congregated together and drank this caffeinated, bitter, not so tasty, but very influential drink. You've got a lot of people showing up to coffee shops for news of the day and politics and all the things that people still show up to coffee shops today for. But the name that they coined for those coffee shops at that time were penny universities, because you could show up and for the price of a coffee, which was, a penny, you could rub shoulders and learn and argue with people from all social aspects. So it was one of those places that anybody from any socioeconomic range could show up and commune together, which I think created a lot of healthy friction for a burgeoning industry and a change in politics and that social ideology at that time.
I just looked it up. It's the early 1700s.
You and your fucking precision.
I just love that idea that for a penny you could get a university education, because that's where everyone was hanging out.
Right.
All the smart people and who love to share their knowledge with others.
That's right. Pontificate.
Tim, that concept of the penny university and that sense of community has been pretty influential for you, right?
So my history with coffee is long and storied, but I've worked in a couple of coffee shops. I've done a couple stints in a few different coffee shops. I cut my teeth as an artist and a thinker in coffee shops. So, I had my first experience with coffee at home. This was in the, late 80s, early 90s. Like, I wasn't old enough to really enjoy coffee, but I remember having some as a kid before my teenage years, and it was intriguing. I grew up wanting to be more adult than I was at the time, and I saw coffee as a way of doing that and getting my day started.
I'm just imagining an 8-year-old you like, oh, gotta get my day started.
I can't go to school without my coffee.
No, but the first cup of coffee I remember ever having was my mom had taken my younger sister and I to some nighttime outdoor event, and it was just bitter cold, and whatever concessions they'd had at this event were not really geared towards kids, so there wasn't any hot chocolate or hot apple cider or anything like that. But that was the time of year that this was happening, and I was just freezing. So my mom got me a cup of coffee because that was the hot warming option that we had, and it was just terrible. I mean, I think objectively terrible, even for somebody who enjoys coffee.
I like that you feel the need to defend your position that a funfair coffee was bad.
No, right.
And just to clarify, it was shit.
And this is in the late 80s when coffee was shit almost everywhere. But particularly, that big silver urn of coffee that you can find at like AA meetings or church functions.
That's right. That's the Folgers. Don't fuck with the Folgers, man.
Yeah, that's what we were working with. And it was just terrible. And they didn't have any cream, so it was that non-dairy creamer stuff.
Was it the powdered? The powdered?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Which, fun fact, powdered non-dairy creamer is flammable. I worked at Dairy Queen, and we had that stuff available to us, and we'd sit in the back parking lot instead of doing our jobs at night and just stream a fine stream of that powder out of the canister and set a lighter to it and just watch it burn.
You and I had childhoods with a lot in common, Tim.
Yeah.
The lighting of things on fire. Like, will it burn was like a primary question in my childhood. Will this burn?
Well, you can add one more to the list. Non-dairy creamer.
Okay, so I want to back up here. I'm curious. So I have actually never heard this story. I'm really excited that I'm hearing a new story from Tim about coffee. So your mom gets you this cup of coffee. It's crap.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Okay, then what happened?
It got me through the chill of that evening, but
Were you miserable drinking it?
Yeah, it was, and it was scalding hot. That's the other thing I remember, is it was just burning hot in one of those styrofoam cups, you know? It made me curious, like, why anybody would willingly drink that stuff.
Right.
I just love that this is how it starts, right?
Right.
You're with your family, you're miserable. I mean, let's assume it's because of the meteorological circumstances and not familial.
Right.
You're miserable. You are given this terrible beverage
That's
somehow...
supposed to help you.
Yeah, exactly. It does help you, but it also burns you. It helps you too much, right? And then it also tastes terrible. But it is, on some level, it did save you from that situation.
Right. And that was the time in my childhood where I would sneak sips of beer from my dad's bottle, or, you know, like, it's just, again, I've always wanted to be more adult than I was until I hit adulthood, and then I totally reverted back to wanting to be a kid again.
Yeah, that's the correct order of operations.
Do you feel like, I know it's hard to remember, but did you drink coffee soon after that? Were you like, what is the...
Right.
Or you just delved in because
what drove you to go... Sorry. Bad podcaster. What drove you to go back for the second taste?
That's fair. I don't think it was immediate. I think it took a long time after that. But when I was probably in middle school, the idea of drinking coffee appealed to me. So this was probably when Starbucks was really starting to hit the center of the country. So they were expanding into places like Colorado, where I grew up. I remember going to Starbucks for the first time and being kind of blown away by that whole Frappuccino thing, because that's what you got when you were 12. And that's how old I was at the time. And it was just this sugary frozen ice cream of a drink that made you feel really alert and awake, which was great. But that was a sometimes treat for me. But what got me going was that my mom would wake up hours before me or my sister would wake up for school.
In an effort to discover a moment of sanity.
I'm sure, it was fully to have a quiet house in which to think your thoughts. And she had just your average Mr. Coffee maker with that tin can of Folgers coffee, and she drank, now I know objectively, strong, terrible coffee. But I remember every once in a while waking up earlier than I was supposed to and trying to have a coffee morning with my mom.
That's sweet. It's so sweet.
And pouring a lot of sugar into it and a lot of milk and X, Y, and Z. The idea of drinking coffee appealed to me more than the taste of coffee did at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 14 or early 15, I got my first job washing dishes at a little Italian/Mexican restaurant in the town I grew up in.
Like you do? Sure. You want a taco? You want spaghetti? What do you want?
Again, me wanting to be more grown up than I was as a kid, which is a big theme I'm realizing. And the first thing that I bought with my own money that I'd earned from that job was a coffee maker for my bedroom, which was in the basement of the house we grew up in.
You made a comment, something like, I became interested in the idea of drinking coffee. And I know you've mentioned several times the idea of being an adult before your time. What did being an adult mean to you? What did a person who drank coffee, who was a person who drank coffee?
At that same point, I was really watching a lot of Nick at Night. So Nickelodeon was a kids channel. After like 10 p.m., they'd just play black and white reruns of old shows like Gilligan's Island and I Love Lucy and
Bewitched.
One was Dobie Gillis, which I was intrigued by for some reason.
Maynard G. Krebs has been a formative influence on me.
No, and that's exactly where I'm going with that is Maynard G. Krebs.
He was the beatnik, right?
Yeah. Feckless and weird, and played by the same actor who ended up playing Gilligan. I can't remember his name.
Bob Denver.
Bob Denver. That's who drank coffee for me. I don't know where I made that connection, but like the idea of beatnik culture entered my stream of consciousness at that point and was very intriguing to me. The weird artistic side of society are the people who congregated at coffee shops for me. That was being helped by me discovering my locally owned coffee shop at the time, which was right in the part of town where I'd hang out after school and spend my newfound money that I'd just earned. But they'd do things like open mics and have different artists' paintings on the walls every month, and, you know, that classic early mid-90s local coffee shop.
Yeah.
La Dolce Vita. And actually, that was my first coffee shop job, is I'd been a customer for so long that when I needed a job, I went to the owner, Doug, and begged for a job, and he trained me well, especially knowing now what I know about what coffee shops were doing back then, which was, in my coffee nerdiness, a little antiquated, but Doug was doing some cool things as far as sourcing espresso beans from a faraway coffee roaster rather than using whatever locally roasted crap was available to him. He was focused on quality when I think a lot of local coffee shops were more focused on the vibes. I loved Paris on the Platte in Denver, but they didn't serve great coffee. It was all about the vibes of the place. And I had the most disastrous date I've ever been on at Paris on the Platte.
Well, you need to tell that story right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I was driving a 1984 Chevy Citation at the time that I bought off of a friend for $300. And it was like primer gray, and it gushed steering fluid. So if you could steer it, it was a workout. And
Like driving a boat.
it's the prototypical ugly 80s car. I can't think of an uglier car than a Chevy Citation. I think I'd met this girl on like an AOL chat room. We had...
Oh, like us.
Right, yes. No, we can talk about our origin story whenever
No,
you
I
want.
wasn't trying to make it about me. I just thought it'd be funny to say we met on an AOL chat room.
But that was in 2006.
Right.
No, so...
We were the last two people on AOL.
Man, that little AOL "You've Got Mail" thing chimed, and I knew it was the love of my life. We didn't go to the same school or anything. This was when I was in high school. Eventually, we set up a date, and I went to go pick her up. Surprisingly, my 1984 primer gray Chevy Citation was having problems, and it had overheated on my way to go get her. So I was like 20 minutes late because I had to wait for my car to come down out of the danger zone and rumble its way to her house. And when I got there, it was not a mansion, but it had a 4 to 6 car garage on outside of the house, and I remember driving up onto her driveway and just fearing for my life that it was just going to gush oil and steering fluid all over this nice driveway even.
You're so class conscious at that moment. You're like, I hope I
Oh,
don't
no,
ruin
the
their
thing
driveway.
is, I was class conscious in the first place, and I had no idea that she was from that part of town or what, like I didn't know, I didn't even know that part of town existed. I grew up lower middle class, and the stark difference between my life and her life in that moment before I'd even physically met her was huge.
Yeah.
And I get into the driveway, I park, I go up to the front door, and the dad greets me, and I am just not ready for any of that, you know? And he wasn't a large, intimidating man, but he was intimidating in the fact that he was the dad. And I remember he made me fill out a kind of a silly, jokey questionnaire on how to date my daughter or something, like a multiple choice quiz, and it was just awful.
In that moment, that is totally punching down.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, he didn't know who I was. Anyway, I had to explain that my car is having problems and that I don't feel comfortable taking her out in the car I arrived at their house in.
Did he loan you his Porsche?
No. She ended up driving a Lexus with a GPS screen in the car. And I know that's common now, but that was just not even something I knew existed then.
What year are we talking?
Oh, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
The difference in my experience and her experience was just huge. We had decided to go to Paris on the Platte. I'd been many times with my hooligan friends. That was one of my favorite places to go. So that's where I wanted to take her. I think she was completely freaked out the entire time. I saw a couple friends while we were there that came up to the table to say hello, who were the stinkiest, filthiest punk rockers.
The ones you can smell 20 feet away?
I knew my punk rock friends by their body odor because
Yeah.
I didn't even need to see them. I knew they were in the room just by smell. We never hung out again. I don't know if we even had a conversation after the night.
Did
Yeah.
she have fun? She didn't have fun.
I don't think she had fun. I had fun. It was just humiliating for me on many, many levels, is what I remember taking away from that. Rest in peace, Paris on the Platte.
I feel like that girl's name was Angelica, and you had your discomfort when you pulled up to her mansion in your jalopy, but then you got her back because then she pulled up to your jalopy in her mansion.
Yeah, that was not a relationship that was meant to be. That is certain.
You were a barista for many years.
Yeah.
What were your favorite things about being a barista? Follow-up question, what is the most bullshit coffee drink?
Good question. The things I liked about being a barista was the tactile nature of the job, using my hands all day long to make things has always appealed to me. I've been in the restaurant industry. I've done some artistic work with clay and making masks and stuff, and drawing and writing, and all of those things appeal to me because I'm using my hands. And being a barista, that was probably the biggest part of that. And the other side of that was that it is this semi-mysterious thing, using all your senses to understand whether or not you're doing a good job making something delicious that you're never going to taste. So making drinks for other people was always something where kind of using all the other senses besides taste to ensure that something delicious was going to happen at the other side of that was a big challenge for me that I really enjoyed taking up drink after drink after drink. So my favorite drink when I was working was just straight espresso, which was a learned thing. I didn't go into the coffee shop loving espresso, but, you know, I come from the mentality that you've got to taste things over and over to understand the quality of those things and try and get better. So I developed a palate for espresso fairly quickly, and that's what I enjoyed drinking most, because I wasn't going to spit my espresso out after tasting, which a lot of baristas do, because that's good drugs right there. So I drank a lot of espresso during my working day. The thing that I would hate making most is probably, I mean, the frozen drinks in the blender are a pain in the ass, and I think baristas can objectively hate that all across the spectrum. But caramel macchiatos aren't a thing. They're just not a real drink, and it's something that Starbucks made up. And I didn't work at a Starbucks, but it was so influential a drink that a lot of other coffee shops adopted how they made caramel macchiatos. And it's not a drink, it doesn't taste very good, and it's just sweet. That was one that I'd resent being ordered. And sugar-free flavors are bullshit too. Like, anybody who ordered a sugar-free vanilla latte, that bugged me a lot too.
It makes me think that if the reason you liked coffee in the first place is because it represented adulthood in some way, or growing up, or, you know, having responsibility for yourself in some way, if that's why you liked it, and you liked it so much that you kept going to coffee shops and became a barista, then you're faced with someone who comes to a coffee shop and orders some bullshit. And you're like, no, the whole point, the whole reason we're here is to be awesome.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah. I don't resent people not enjoying the taste of straight black coffee. That took me a long time to get into. That was a choice I made at Denny's in the middle of the night, drinking a bunch of coffee with, again, my hooligan friends.
When all the best choices are made at Denny's in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you know, all-night diners are where you go to make smart choices.
So my question, I want to go back to, since we're on taste and favorites that way, I wondered, I worked at a coffee shop, but I was not a barista. I mean, I was, but I wasn't. And I always wondered, when I would read cupping notes or hear someone talk about their cupping notes from a tasting, they would talk about all the flavors they got. And I wanted to ask you where you experienced those in your mouth or on your palate. Like, can you go through, like, fruity or acidic or whatever? Can you go through, like, typical flavors you might get and where they are in your mouth?
Yeah, cupping is what coffee professionals do at origin, the place where the coffee is grown. They do a quick roast of a small amount of beans from many different growers in that area, and then they throw the roasted ground coffee into these cupping bowls, throw hot water on top, let the coffee grounds rise to the top of that bowl, wait a specified amount of time, a few minutes, use a couple spoons to crack the dried coffee cake that's on the top of that bowl open so that they can access the liquid underneath and slurp it and slurp it and slurp it. And they will go down a line of cupping bowls, noting what they like and don't like from certain lots of coffee grown by different farms or different areas of one farm. And so that's kind of how cupping works in the industry. And the cupping notes, I think, have become kind of ridiculous and esoteric, and it's a great place for coffee nerds to try and one-up each other by trying to pick the most obscure fruit or nut or whatever they're tasting. They've got to dig as deep as they can in their sensual memory to come up with the most ridiculous fruit that evokes citrus or whatever.
Sure. And is it boysenberry? I get boysenberry.
That's kind of my opinion on that, is that it's whose coffee dick is bigger than the other guy's coffee dick is what it's turned into. But I think it serves a great purpose. If anybody wants to get better at tasting anything, doing comparative tastings where you're putting like things side by side and taking a little bit from each of those samples and comparing them against each other is a great way to increase your awareness of your palate and what you're tasting and how you're tasting it. If that thing that you're trying to taste is coffee, there are some great tools out there that help you visualize the taste of coffee. The SCA or SCAA has put out a coffee wheel, a coffee taster's wheel. It's like a color wheel for taste.
Okay.
For coffee specifically. And it kind of gives you a sense of like things and opposing things as far as acidity and bitterness or sweetness and all of those things, and kind of help guide you to decide whether it's a berry sweetness or a citrus acidity, or if it's a pleasant bitterness, or if it's gone acrid. And so it's a really cool thing to look up, and you should Google that thing. And it's beautiful to look at as well. As far as what you taste on your palate when you're tasting something, the whole map of the tongue, acidity, bitterness, sweetness.
We know that's nonsense.
Yeah, it is nonsense. I think that it can evoke certain areas of your mouth to wake up a little bit more, but you're tasting everything on all parts of your tongue all the time. Coffee being caffeinated is inherently bitter. Pure caffeine is a very bitter thing. Because coffee has caffeine, it's bitter. But I think that I associate a pleasant bitterness with coffee when it is balanced with the right level of acidity and natural sweetness that's caused by the sugars in the coffee bean being fermented well and treated well, and then those cooking sweet things like the Maillard reaction and caramelization that happen when the coffee's roasted. Those are fantastic things. People love sweet, and so the sweeter you can naturally make a coffee, the better it's going to taste to almost everybody.
Okay, Tim, lightning round.
Yeah.
Top 3 coffee roasters right now.
For me, Onyx Coffee out in Arkansas has surprised me in many, many ways. There's a coffee roaster out in Santa Cruz called Cat and Cloud, and they have great coffee, but the 3 owners of that coffee roaster do great things as far as outreach and education online. So if you're looking to learn more about coffee and the coffee industry, there are countless videos and podcasts, and they're great personalities, and they've been in the industry for a long, long time as baristas, and they busted their ass to be able to open their own coffee shop and roastery, and they're killing it. And I like the way they do business, and I like the way they think about coffee. As far as a culture standpoint, they're definitely my favorite. Third, I think Ruby Coffee Roasters does really good work as well. Ruby Coffee Roasters is in Wisconsin.
Another lightning round.
Yeah.
Top 3 tips for people to make better coffee at home.
Invest in some simple equipment is my first tip. So figuring out what you like is one thing, but being able to repeat it day after day is a different thing. So you need to be able to track what you're doing when you're making coffee. Using scales is a big deal, even with a plug-in machine. Knowing how much coffee you're putting into the basket or whatever you're putting your ground coffee into is a big deal, so that you can find what you like, whether it's the strength of that coffee, etc. Being able to weigh out your coffee is important. So getting a decent scale that gives you grams, ideally, is the best way to do that. Buying a burr grinder to grind your own coffee at home so that coffee stays fresher longer.
So that would be a tip. Don't buy ground coffee.
Yeah, don't buy ground coffee. Don't put your coffee in the freezer. Kind of goes along with ground coffee. it starts messing with the oils in the coffee, especially since you're going to open and close that freezer door every day at least, if not multiple times a day. Cool, dark place away from oxygen as much as you can is a great way to store coffee. Take your water straight off the boil. I think that it's much easier to screw up coffee with cooler water than just taking coffee straight off the boil and using it there. The other thing for better coffee is get a cool mug that you love. And it's going to help the ritual of drinking coffee. It's going to, even bad coffee tastes better in, for me, preferably handmade pottery mug. I think it tastes better because I'm paying attention to the look and feel of what I'm holding.
Puts you in your senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's your go-to drink at a coffee shop, Teresa?
I don't like to order milky drinks at coffee shops. I'll often just get coffee and put cream in it myself and just have drip because there's less to go wrong. Like I like to limit the variables.
Yeah, batch brewed coffee. Somebody else designed that machine and designed that recipe, and there's not interaction with that one drink. Here's one of my biggest, hugest pet peeves in most coffee shops. If your batch brewed coffee goes into one of those vacuum pots where you're pumping the top of the canister to get the coffee out of, 99% of those vacuum pots are filthy on the inside, and they don't wash them properly, so there are rancid coffee oils from 20 batches of coffee ago that are still clinging to the walls, the inside walls of those fucking pots. And no matter how good the coffee is going into that, 5 minutes after it's in there, it's going to taste terrible.
If I go to a coffee shop where I know that they do good work, and usually that means someone has told me they do good work, I like a cappuccino, honestly. It's a good little drink.
Yeah, I like a trad cap myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm familiar with the coffee shop, I will adjust my order based on who the barista is.
Yeah.
Oh, that person, I'll get a drip coffee.
Oh, Teresa's working. Yeah, drip today.
Worst barista ever.
It's not far off.
Now, Teresa, did you ever decaf anybody?
Of course.
When you worked at the...
Of course. Yeah, so if someone's a jerk and then they get decaf. I mean, that's just how that goes. Like you can't be a jerk to the people who are serving you. You can't be a jerk to waiters. Anyone who's doing a job you want them to do for you, don't be a jerk. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. And it's just the funnest way to get a little bit of...
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ruin your afternoon, and you're not even going to know until 2 o'clock. I like retribution. I'm a fan.
It must be really satisfying, I imagine.
Well, you don't got to make a stand. You don't need to fight in the moment.
Right.
There's nothing happening then. It's just, oh, that's how you're going to be? Okay.
Enjoy your drink. Your useless drink.
That's right. You're going to be tired in your staff meeting, and you're not going to know why.
Dicks get decaf.
That's right. Dicks get decaf is the store motto. I'm just remembering, listening to you talk about your coffee experience is making me remember my own. And I just really like the way you were talking about how the culture is what drew you first. And it's kind of, and because they've been around for so long, which I didn't really know before you told me, and also Blackadder, thank you. There's something about the idea of a third place. So you have your home, you have your work, and then where else do you go that's like a public, social environment?
Not these days.
Nowhere
now.
For the next 6 weeks. Third place is in your own mind.
That's right. I'm going to go sit in my back hallway. I'm just going to move a chair to the back hallway. I never sit in there.
I think finding your third place is a big deal. Coffee shops are great places for that.
Ray Oldenburg, a sociologist who was working for the Brookings Institution, which is a think tank, he's the one who coined the phrase third place.
Well, I just wanted to say this was really nice.
It's
really fun to talk to both of you. And I'm really excited because I learned things about Tim.
It was great talking to you both.
Thanks to our guest, Tim Rearick.
Thank you for listening to It Chooses You with Claire Patton and Teresa Sparks is my name. Shit. Let's try that again. I've been
I thought that was perfect.
That stays.
You just forgot your own name.
That's why we call you One Take Teresa Sparks.
That's right. All right. I love you guys. Stay warm. Stay
I love
happy.
you too.
Love you, T.
I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Testing. Great. Thank you for listening to It Chooses You. Your hosts are Teresa Sparks and Claire Patton. Our theme song is by Bobby Dart. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us an email at itchoosesyouPodcast@gmail.com.